Hi, my name is Niina and you're listening Together Through the Storms podcast. Welcome to the journey with me. I would like to begin by acknowledging traditional owners of the land where I'm recording this episode today, which is the Wurrung country. I would like to pay my respects to the elders past and present and to any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander people who may be listening today. Hi guys, welcome back to Together Through the Storms podcast. Thank you for joining this week's episode. I hope you've all had a fabulous weekend. Last week's episode was very, very personal as I shared my experience regarding my girl's initial diagnosis. If you haven't listened to it yet, I recommend to go and listen because I feel like this current episode makes more sense to you after listening that. It was actually quite triggering for me to talk about those raw memories and emotions of the very initial diagnosis time in the previous episode. As a parent for children with additional needs, we just need to push forward, and we don't often have the time or the space to reflect and look back of the journey. And I feel like that was just a reflection for me, and it felt really uncomfortable. And I really needed to ground myself after sharing that. So doing those self-care routines that makes me feel more connected to myself, because there was a lot of big emotions that came to the surface after sharing that. It also made me feel very vulnerable, and it definitely made me question if I'm doing the right thing by sharing that experience. But after doing a lot of reflection, I came to the conclusion that if sharing my raw, unfiltered emotions around the initial diagnosis time helps even one person to feel less lonely, I definitely feel that it was worth it. Today, I'm going to share some of my learnings regarding the initial diagnosis and some thoughts and strategies of what may be helpful when navigating that period of time. These thoughts are purely based on my own experience as a mother of 2 deaf children. And I'm not saying that what I share today will be helpful for everybody, but hopefully you can find something that resonates with you. Let's go to the episode. Thank you for listening. Time for our quote. Today's quote I found from a Facebook page called Inclusion BC, and this is how it goes. 1 in 20 children have a disability. That gives 19 kids a daily opportunity to learn about diversity, collaboration, inclusion, and friendship. Ooh, that's powerful and also brings back a lot of memories. We're so lucky personally because I feel that all the children that my girls are around have accepted from very early on that Missy and Sissy wear their cochlear implants and they might use sign language. So anyone who's close to us, that's just a very natural thing. There may have been some questions at the start, and that's just natural curiosity from children. And I'm very happy to answer those questions. And I'd rather have those conversations than don't have those conversations, if that makes sense. I remember a time when I was visiting Finland with my girls. They were 1 and 2 back then, and we were in a kids' play area. And there was a little boy who asked his dad something about the girl's cochlear implant, and there's a little flashing light in both of the cochlear implants, and when they are attached, the light flashes green. And he was very fascinated about this green light. And he asked something about his dad, and his dad looked very embarrassed. He was just trying to distract the boy. I thought it was brilliant that he was so curious and wanted to know more about it. And I didn't at that very particular moment say anything because I felt like the dad was feeling a bit uncomfortable. I wish I did say something and explain to the little boy that what cochlears are in a very, very simple way. But in that moment, I didn't. But I would like to think that it's okay to have those conversations. It's okay to spread the awareness about diversity for the children that are naturally curious and wanting to learn more. Sometimes the questions can make you feel a little bit sad. I'm not going to lie. I was at a play park with my girls a long time ago, and back then my girls had even less language than what they have at the moment. And there was another sweet little girl similar age to my girls, and they started playing together. And the girl was talking to my girls, and she got a little bit frustrated as they weren't responding to her. And she said, "What's wrong with you? Are you deaf or something?" I went down to her level in a very calm way and explained to her that actually the girls are deaf and they can't hear really well and they can't speak a lot. They also sign sometimes. They use their hands to communicate. But you can still play with her. She still likes to play with her friends. I feel like those moments are a little bit heartbreaking, but at the same time, so important to build understanding for other children, those 19 children that don't have disability but are still being exposed to diversity. And sometimes the advocacy work can feel extremely exhausting. But at the end of the day, I look at my girls and I feel like it is my responsibility as their mom to always advocate for them, to make them feel included, to make them feel that although they are different, they can still be seen as anyone else. So I feel like I don't have a choice. I need to spread awareness just so that we can have more inclusive, diverse world for our children. Based on my own experience as a mother of two deaf daughters who were diagnosed at birth, I have crafted 6 key points that I want to share with you today. Guess they are my main learning from this journey, and I hope that maybe you're at the start of this journey. Maybe this might be helpful for you. Everyone is different though, so of course I'm not saying that this would be helpful for every single one of you, but maybe there's something that resonates with you. First of all, take deep breaths. You're going to be okay, I promise. You are stronger than you think, but remember, it's also absolutely okay not to be strong all the time. Second reflection is that all feelings are valid. There's so many emotions that I look back and go, did that really happen? So nothing is permanent. Those emotions that you experience at the start of the journey are valid. They are not there forever. You will move forward. You can be angry. You can be bitter. Acceptance takes time and you don't have to be there yet. Take your time. Third point that I really want to highlight is information overload. I can't tell you not to go and Google whatever the diagnosis or the challenge is, because you will do it anyway. That's just human nature. We want to find out everything we possibly can about the situation, about those tricky words that we are struggling to understand. And Google seems like the perfect answer to that situation. I am just asking to be mindful that what you find from the internet might not automatically apply to your child. Every child is unique, and it doesn't always mean that what you find from the internet will happen to your child. So just try to keep your mind open. Also, don't overdo the research at the start. I know how easy it is to drown into all of that information and want to find out more and as fast as possible. But take breaks, switch your brain off, because you can only process information in certain pace, and it will take time for those pieces to fall into their places. A good friend of mine said to me once, this is not a sprint, it's a marathon. Make sure you pace yourself. The fourth point I want to bring to your attention is find your people. Find the people that understand you. I know lots of you have great, loving family and great friends, super amazing support around you, and that is just fantastic. However, it's still very challenging for even your closest and dearest people to understand the experience that you're going through. So it might be a good idea to look into finding some people to support you, as well as the family and friends who are on the same journey, or at least on a similar journey, because no one's journey is the same. I've personally found that best place to find these people could be, for example, play groups. So if you know there's a specific play group for maybe any child with the same diagnosis, that might be a brilliant place to start. Sometimes it's not that straightforward. Maybe you could talk to your health nurse if they know about any groups in the area. Sometimes Facebook can be a good place to start. However, I'm asking to be mindful. Not every single person on those groups are always respectful. I found it myself. You just have to kind of set your boundaries. But in the ideal situation, you can find great friendships there, and I have myself. This next one might feel a little bit intimidating, especially like I come from Finland, and Finnish people in general don't like small talk. I hate small talk. But I found that one useful place for small talk is waiting rooms. When you go to see a specialist, you're sitting in the waiting room sometimes for hours. It is exhausting. But the people there are your people. Just having a chat with them can sometimes make unexpected connections, and those are the best ones ever, because someone understands you and sees you. So be brave, have a chat, see what it brings into your life. My fifth key point is around specialists. We are currently very fortunate with my girls. We have amazing dream care team around my girls, but that hasn't always been the way, and it took a long time to build that team. Unfortunately, not every specialist you meet share the same insight and the agendas. First of all, you're going to be surrounded in most cases with quite few specialists, and their views and agendas can sometimes differ a great amount from each other. It's okay to not agree with specialists sometimes. I would say you have amazing inbuilt capability, gut feeling inside of you. Trust that gut feeling. Sometimes that might mean that you request to change the key person that you're working with. Not that anyone would come to that with light reasoning, but sometimes it is what you need, and then be brave to ask for it. I have done it myself, and I have never regretted it. And the sixth point that I want to highlight is mindset. I think it's so natural to have those worries. And I don't know about you guys, but for me, it's that 3 a.m. when I'm supposed to be sleeping and all the anxious thoughts come to me and all the worst case scenarios that haven't even happened yet. And how do we manage that? Well, I found it really useful in that moment. Try to think if this worry is something that I can control, or is it out of my control? If it is something that I can control, try to think actions that you do. What actions can you take the next day? Maybe you call a certain person, maybe you email them, maybe you put referral in. Just try to think one concrete thing. And if you come to the conclusion that this is something that is completely out of your control, then try to let it go. No, it's really challenging and it's not as straightforward as that. Maybe try writing it into your phone. I love writing notes into my phone. Maybe do that. Write it on a piece of paper, put it somewhere where it's out of your head, and hopefully this will give some capacity and also give you a sense of relief. So I feel like it's been extremely beneficial for me to think when worries arise, whether the worry is something that I can take action or maybe something that I can't control, that is completely out of my control, and what helps me to release that worry in that case. Another thing that is much related to that is looking after yourself. It's so easy in the middle of all of it to forget ourselves, just focus on what's more important in that moment or what feels like more important. But the fact is that if we keep pouring and pouring from our cup and never filling it, we will run out. And who's going to take over when we're burned out? I know it feels irrelevant sometimes to take time for ourselves, but it's the most important thing that you can sometimes do to carry on and keep going. Sometimes you have to learn it the hard way. I personally did, but prioritizing self-care is not selfish. It's absolutely must, especially when you have children that have high needs. It's so important to look after your own well-being. It's not easy. It's definitely not easy. And sometimes it's the smallest thing that can make a big difference. I come back to the episode where I said, make sure you ask for help. Sometimes the help is so that you can have a break. Try to think, how could you create a bit more space for self-care in your own life if you feel that you're starting to be burned out or that you don't have moments when you feel like you can recharge. Thank you so much for listening and sharing this journey with me. I really hope that this made you feel even tiny little bit less lonely. Would love to hear what your biggest learning regarding initial diagnosis has been. Feel free to share that with me on my Instagram account on Together Through the Storms. I look forward to seeing you back here next week. As always, feel free to share this episode on your social media and follow me on Spotify. That would mean a lot to me. Thank you so much. Take care and see you next time.